All right.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the In Transition podcast. I am so excited to be here with the incredible Lyndsay Dowd today to talk all things career change and loss, being fired, and what it takes to actually recover and rebound from that. And I feel like this also has a huge play for those that are experiencing layoff right now, because sometimes that is also a very traumatic event, right? And we don't know how to quite recover from that and make the most of these seemingly traumatic experiences in our career. But before I get into this wonderful conversation with Lyndsay, I want to introduce her for those of you who do not know Lyndsay and her work. Lyndsay is a speaker, founder, author, coach, podcast host, and disruptor, all of those things. It's like, I don't know how you managed to get through a day. She was recognized as a top 10 business coach by Apple News and was the recipient of the 2023 Award for Innovation and Excellence, also named Business Coach of the Year. She is an accomplished leader, decorated seller, and has successfully managed large, diverse, high-performing sales teams over the last 25 years. 23 of those years were spent climbing the ranks at IBM, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit today. And in creating her company, Heartbeat for Hire, she has devoted her career to transforming leadership through building irresistible culture and modern leadership practices to get the best results from their teams. Don't all companies need that? She is a thriving coach focused on sales, leadership, career, and culture. Lyndsay also hosts the top 10% globally ranked podcast, Heartbeat for Hire. Top five? It's changed. Top five. Yes. And she's a frequent guest speaker on live and recorded shows. So happy to have her here today. Lyndsay, welcome.
So happy to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. From the first moment I talked to Lyndsay, I knew we had to do something together. I knew she had so much wisdom to share with my audience, the world. So let's start at the top, Lyndsay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You shared a little bit about this when we met the first time.
Yep.
Career transition, shocking career transition when it comes out of the blue. What happened? What was your immediate response?
Yeah. So, I mean, now you said I had spent 23 years at IBM, and let me just also say my family put in 105 years. So I was totally part of a Big Blue legacy. I was born a Big Blue baby. My dad was there actually before I was born. So we had this incredible legacy. Everyone thought I would die there. And I was leading really big sales organizations. They were monkeying around with my head count. I didn't like it. And another company sought me out and said, hey, why don't you come over here, come run a sales team for us? And I was like, okay, it's time. So I put on my big girl pants and I said, let's go. And I went to this new company and I knew it was going to be hard, but I'm a maverick. I'm a hustler. I'm like, I'm good. I'll figure it out. I always do. And it was really hard, harder than I thought. And in 6 months, they fired me. And anyone that knows me knows that was not part of my plan. That was never something I thought would happen to me. And I was gutted. I mean, gutted. And for a good solid month, I couldn't talk about it. I felt so ashamed. I felt like I had a scarlet letter. Things that were going through my head were like, no one will ever hire me. I got fired. I'm like the worst now. Now I went from having this incredible decorated career to persona non grata. And that was like this horrible feeling because it kind of voided all of my accomplishments, my achievements. It really made me sad. But after a month, I asked myself 3 questions. I said, what am I good at? What do I love to do? And how can I help people the most? And what I knew was how to build modern leaders, and I knew how to create irresistible culture that drives results. So I started my company, Heartbeat for Hire, and that was 2 years ago. And I built my own website. I didn't know I could do that. I wrote a book. I didn't know I could do that. I started a podcast and episode 88 aired yesterday. And I got some awards and I coach and I speak and I do all these things that I never would have done if I wasn't shoved out of the nest. So my message to all of you is just because these things happen, it doesn't define you. Your failures never define you. Your accomplishments are yours. Those are facts, not feelings. And you got to cling to those and remind yourself of how good you are because somebody somewhere needs that wisdom.
Yes, that's so true. And it's making me think about when people are in this mode of transitioning between work, especially after losing a job, either being fired or being laid off, that we kind of don't know what to do. I've been in this position a couple times in my own career where half of us want to stay in bed
Oh yeah.
and not do anything. And like you said, you took a month to kind of get yourself together.
Yeah.
And the other half is like hustle, 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 get the next job. There's
Yep.
a sense of desperation. What is your advice to people navigating this world? Because I know when I
Yeah.
talk to women about my experience, it was like, I had to give myself some damn grace.
Yes. I think that's so important. And I think the most important thing, actually, a few things I'm going to recommend, but the first thing I want you to really hone in on and sit with is, what is your why? What is your purpose? What drives you? What makes you love what you do? What makes you passionate? What do you get excited about that you can't wait to talk more about? Because that is your purpose, and your purpose serves as your North Star that will guide you. And I know for me, even when I was working in a corporate job, whenever I could define my purpose, whenever I could get excited about what I was selling, I was better. I was just unstoppable if I could ever define, like, you need this software because do you know what it does? It helps people XYZ. Whenever I could get excited about it, I was just better. So sit and talk about and think about your why. That's the first thing. Second thing I want to tell you is you have to build your brag book. And your brag book is such an important exercise. So your brag book is basically all of your accomplishments, your achievements, your promotions, your recognition, anytime you were published, anytime you were on a podcast, whatever. It's all of these important things that are yours and only yours. And if you hit your number 10 years in a row or 5 quarters in a row or whatever it is, all of those records, put it in the brag book. And the brag book stays with you for your entire career. So if you have volunteering, add that. If all of these things are important, and the reason they're important is because when people are asking you, who are you? What do you do? You're going to forget. So when you have it handy, it's right there. And it's so, so good for you to have that. Also to remind yourself how badass you are. But the third thing I'm going to tell you, and this one's really important, is to build your pros and cons list. Now, lots of people talk about pros and cons lists, but we're going to talk about it in the sense of career. Your pros are all the jobs you've ever loved, the things you've loved, the tasks you've loved, the missions you've loved, all the things that really made your motor run. The cons are all the things you never want to do again. If you hate, doing analytics, or you hate living in the world of spreadsheets or whatever it is, you need to write it down. And the reason you do this is because if you're going to interview for a job, you want to take that job description and put everything in the pros and cons list, because we all get that shiny penny syndrome where they're like, oh, I love the title. I love the pay. I love these 3 things, but 8 of them are terrible, things you never want to do again. It's probably not the right job. So really kind of hone in on, is this the right job for you? So you can be super intentional about what it is you're stepping into.
I love the idea of the brag book, thinking about how few people probably have anything like that.
Well, so this is actually a really good business practice, and I did this for years. I had a pats on the back folder. So anytime somebody sent my manager an email, or if I got an email, or I got an award, I chucked it in there. And even if somebody just gave a testimonial, like, we couldn't have done this without her, it went in that folder. And anytime I was having a real bad day, it was always fun to go back and look at, no, you know what? There's 150 notes in here with people that think I'm pretty great. It's such a good moment for you to be like, no, I'm good. I'm fine. And because this one person is lashing out at me, that does not define who I am. So it's not too late to start, but like, chuck all of those things in there and send it to your personal email so you always have it, because God forbid you get laid off and you're shut out of those systems, it's all gone. So you want to have your own personal copy.
Yeah. And I imagine this is a living document that you just keep
Yes.
adding to.
Yes, 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 yes.
Follows you around.
Well, and when you start to do it, you remember how, like, if you were like me, I mean, I've been on LinkedIn since 2006, but it doesn't mean I did anything with it until the last couple of years. Anytime I had a job change, or I got a certification, or I got a promotion, the first thing I did was go out to LinkedIn, because everyone needed to know. I didn't do anything with it, but it's that kind of practice though. So, okay, something's good, in the brag book it goes. and refocusing your brain to record, document, capture. That's just the mindset you got to stay in.
It's really interesting too, because most of my audience is women,
Mm,
and women tend to struggle with being braggadocious, what I'd call it, at all about anything they've achieved in any
mhm,
aspect of their life.
mhm. Yeah.
How did
So
you feel about it? Was this something that came natural to you, or you had to?
yeah, so I actually I say this a lot, and it took me I was never afraid of saying, I got promoted or I did that, like that. That was just fine. But I really had to teach myself facts are not feelings. And this is when I coach my clients. I'm always like, wait. You were promoted, the youngest person, in history to do this job, or you were recognized for this. Okay, why aren't we talking about that? Why isn't that in your headline? Why aren't you? And they're like, I don't know. Well, let's talk about it. We're not bragging. These are facts, not feelings. We're not refuting that these things happened, because they did. Own it, sit in it, be proud of it. And where women tend to really kind of sell themselves short, they always say, men get promoted based on potential, and women get promoted based on experience. And we're the ones that are like, oh, I'm not experienced enough for that job. I can't go for it. I'm only 70% qualified. Men applying for jobs are like 30% qualified, and they're getting them. But they're
Mm,
also really comfortable with their accomplishments. So when you get in that mindset of facts and not feelings, it takes away that, sorry to tell you, I'm the best at this. Like, that's terrible. No, say, I was the
own it.
rep who did blah, 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 or I led a team to do blah, blah, blah. Whatever those moments are, own it and be freaking proud. Be
Yeah,
proud.
be proud. I mean, we need to be proud of our accomplishments.
Well, and
And
if
it's
you're
neat.
not going to be proud, who is? Your mom?
Yeah.
She's not getting you the job.
No, she's not. Would be nice though.
Yeah,
It's making me think though, if someone's listening and has never done this before, this is a new concept. The good starting point in my mind, I was like, go to your resume and start thinking back to all these roles, right?
that's right. That's
What
right. That's
what is
exactly
the
how I teach it.
story? Yeah,
Yeah.
what have you accomplished that
So
you're proud of?
you brought up one of my favorite topics, and that's selling your story. So I actually built the Sell Me Your Story workshop with my friend Ashley Pereira. And and I'll tell you the reason we built it and what it's become. So as you know, I host a podcast, and the first question I ask on my show is always the same, and it's, so tell us your story. And I had a manager ask me that question once, and I was so blown away by how profound that was. Like, oh my God, do you have a lot of time? Because at that point, I didn't really know like what I was supposed to do. I'm
Yeah.
like, should I start when I was 5? I mean,
Which
like,
story?
how much do you want to know? I died, like, because I had near death experience. Like, all what's relevant? I've gotten really good at it. But when you think about how to differentiate yourself from someone else, you taking that power of the worst thing that ever happened to you and using that, not the car crash, not the bad moment, but the growth as a result of that moment, that makes you really memorable. And so I'll tell you the story that happened with the reason how this came about. I had a person I was recording on my podcast, and of course, I asked that question, and she could not land the plane. For like 7 minutes, she was talking and she was all over the place. And I was like, oh my God, I can't even use this episode. And I stopped the recording at the end and I said, so I saw you struggle with that question. Can I tell you what I would have said if I were you, to my answer to that question? She goes, yeah, sure. I said, well, what I would have said is, you were 25 years in, this company. You had risen to the ranks. You're at the peak of your career. You're being asked to speak in front of the whole company. You're being recognized. You're being promoted, and you get diagnosed with stage 3 endometrial cancer. And you have to take a step back. And in the worst moments of your treatment, you realize it's less stressful going through cancer treatment than it was doing your corporate job. And that's what prompted you to start your own company. And I go, so what do you think? And she goes, well, I'm so much more than that. And I go, well, no kidding. But this is our entree into who you are. And that's when we realized, okay, people don't know how to do this. So thinking about How do you talk about yourself? And when you look back at your life, like, what is the worst thing that happened to you? Did you have a near-death experience? Were you fired? Were you laid off? Did you lose someone really important to you? How did that change your trajectory? Because
Mhm.
those moments are what make you memorable. And when you're trying to separate yourself from other people, you need that. So everybody has a story. I don't
Yeah.
care who you are. You just have to kind of hone in on what that is. And there's always a way to weave it in a clever way, without
Mhm.
sounding boring or droning. But if you can do it tight for a couple of minutes, you'll hook them and they'll be like, tell me more. I want to know more about you. And when they hang up the phone or end the Zoom, they're going to go,
Mhm.
that person's really interesting. I need to tell so and so to talk to her or follow her or connect with
Yeah.
her or whatever. So
And
it's
I'm
cool.
wondering, like, as you're saying this, and people may be listening and thinking, well, the hardest thing that ever happened to me or the thing that might make me memorable isn't related to my career.
Doesn't matter.
How do I weave that in?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't
So think of
matter.
it this way. Think of it this way. So for me, I did have a near-death experience. And of course, anybody that's had one of those will tell you they view their life differently as a result. They live with much more purpose, much more intention. So I could go there, or I have another story, which is equally horrific. But so I was 19 and I was living as my parents had just separated. I think, probably a little bit angry. I was very fresh, very ungrateful, and really not being a very nice human to my parents. And
Mhm.
living a really fast life and kind of like you owe me kind of attitude. I was basically a shit. And I don't know if we can say that here, so sorry.
Yeah, no,
Um,
you're fine.
but I was with my boyfriend at the time. We were rollerblading. He had come to visit me in New York, and I end up having a really bad accident, and I broke my hip and I broke my wrist, and um, I had to have major surgery. Um, I'm in the hospital, and I'm very, very nasty to my mother. And my mother said something to me like, you are the most ungrateful human, and I really don't feel like coming back tomorrow. So I was so like, oh, dude, who are you? What have you done? And the lesson that I learned from that was, I needed to slow down. I needed to appreciate the people around me. And that would have been the only thing that would have slowed me down. Nothing else was
Wow.
going to do that. So I had to like really be hit on the hip or on the head to stop and focus. And so out of that, I looked at my parents differently. I looked at my life differently. Everything that I was doing had to slow down, had to change. And out of that, I grew. And so, okay, that's not related to my career, but can I say I broke my hip when I was 19? I was being a total jerk. I recognize this moment. Yeah, of course you can.
Mhm.
You're going to remember that story. You're going to be like, "Ooh, she was a jerk
Ooh,
and she
she's
turned
come
it
a long
around."
way.
You know, but everybody has those kinds of moments. And,
Mhm.
the heartstring moment is the thing that you want people to resonate
Mhm.
with, because that's the piece that people are going to really go, wow, they learned something.
Yeah.
So,
Uh, so think about those heartstring moments, ladies. I know in sharing my own story with women, when we're talking about what I do in community, it's often the story of my divorce, right? And
exactly.
it's sometimes painful to revisit. I feel like the more I tell the story, though, like the
Get
more
better at it.
empowered
Yeah,
I
of
feel around it too,
course.
where it's like, no, I'm not the only one who's gone through this experience. I have
No.
my own experience of it. We all do, but those are the stories that people remember.
Well, and your
Um,
divorce didn't define you.
no.
Look what you've done with your life post divorce. And so a way to talk about that moment in your life is, I went through a really challenging divorce. It was gutting, it was dehumanizing, it was all the things. But what I've done with my life since is XYZ. People are going to be like, oh, I need a piece of that.
Yeah.
I need to learn from her.
I love
Right?
that. Yeah. So put yourself out there in your story. Think about those things as well as your brag book. And then also, I keep going back to this my
Yeah.
why, because
Yeah.
we all talk about it.
Mm.
Why am I here? What am I supposed to do? What am I good at? Are there certain questions you asked yourself to help prompt you through this? Because I feel like some women get really stuck.
Yeah, I mean, the three questions I asked was, what am I good at? What do I love to do? And how can I help people the most? And whenever anybody can ask themselves, what am I really good at? First of all, if you're a leader, you should be asking people on your team that question. What do you think you're really good at? And what do you think you need to improve on? So whenever you're doing that, you're building trust. But when you're asking yourself, what do I kick butt at? What can nobody compete with me on? Listen, your career choices, and if you're doing entrepreneurship, it shouldn't be hard. Yes, there are parts of entrepreneurship that should be hard, but your why should not be hard. It should be something that speaks to your core, speaks to your soul, really helps get your motor running. So if you have I think I'm good at this, that's probably not it yet. You want to really have something that is so exciting to you that you cannot wait to tell your friends about, you cannot wait to talk about. When you have the opportunity, you're like, oh, so glad you asked me that. So think about that why. And then the part that always gets people, the what am I good at? What do I love to do? Those kind of go hand in hand. But the how can I help people the most? The best leaders work in service to others. And I know you're this way, and I'm this way too. I love to lift others up. I love to highlight others and share their wins. I think it just makes the world a better place. And whenever you're a generous leader and you shine the light on others, it looks good on you. So, however, I can help people get to that, that also really helps my why, because it helps my purpose be a lot stronger. So, those are questions that I would say are good reflecting questions.
Okay.
I think for people that are in corporate roles, having the why is a little harder, just because it's someone else's mission, but you
Mm,
can still do that. And if you know accounting ain't it, because working with numbers doesn't get your motor running, maybe you really love HR, maybe you really love marketing. There are lots of reasons to get excited about jobs, and you just need to make it resonate with your spirit. I think
yeah.
that's important.
That third question around kind of impact really
Mhm.
sits with me because I feel like the women that I connect with the most, the ones that probably listen to this, the ones that are members of my community, that's a huge
Yeah.
piece of, I think, where most people are at in their career. They're
Yeah.
looking for impactful work,
Yeah.
something that feels purposeful. Like we've all done the jobs that either sucked our souls or
Yeah.
didn't feel aligned,
Yeah.
and we're tired. It's like we can't do this anymore.
Well, I love that you said that, because I think the fastest way for anybody to get themselves out of a funk is to do something for someone else.
Mm.
And when you are in what feels like a purposeless role, one of the best things you can do is say, okay, as a team, I want us to go do like Habitat for Humanity, or I want us to go, go to a food pantry and spend an afternoon together. When you do those moments of giving back, it fuels your fire that will last you for a while. And it creates moments of connection, moments of purpose. So if you can't find that in your job, there's 105 ways to do it outside your job that is going to fulfill that purpose. So, and through those moments, it will really help you understand, who you are and where you want to spend your time. It might be with dogs, it might be with cats, it might be with kids, it might be with, you know, housing insecure. There's so many ways to direct that energy.
Yeah. And I think now that I'm hearing you say the word fulfillment, it's bringing up a whole other set of thoughts in my mind around, is work our ultimate sense of fulfillment? Is that where we're deriving most of it? Maybe it's because we've spent most of our waking hours working.
And does it have to be? It
I,
doesn't have to be. You could be making fantastic money. You could be the breadwinner. And it doesn't have to be the most fulfilling work in the world, but find that fulfillment somewhere.
yeah.
And I think, especially for moms, we are the examples for our kids. They model us. So if we're not giving back, they don't know that they can give back. So I will say those moments where you can bring them into a situation where they can witness and volunteer and be a part of something really good, it's life-changing for them. And that will give you some fulfillment.
Yeah. That's like fulfillment's a huge thing. And of
Mm.
course, like as we're talking about why, it's making me want to put you on the spot because I'm sure you're really clear on this for yourself. What is your why?
Oh, well, my why is I'm here to transform leadership as we know it. I think it needs a massive overhaul. And I think we heard loud and clear with the Great Resignation that people expect more from their leaders. They're demanding more. They want more human-centered, heart-led leadership style. And the people that are getting it right, there aren't enough of us. And so whether it's a podcast, a TV spot, an article, my own show, my book, whatever, I'm throwing a wide net to try and make this change. And whenever I can have an opportunity to share the how and why it's important, I take it. But I think people deserve to have great leaders. Micromanagement never inspired anyone, and we've got to do better.
I feel like we all have a story of at
Oh,
least one, probably many micromanagers we've
definitely.
worked with or under that
Mhm.
really tainted our corporate work experience.
Yeah. Well, and you don't quit companies, you quit managers.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
you could have believe me, in 23 years, there was many times I wanted to quit. But then I also had incredible leaders who did incredible things for me and made me think and act and perform in ways that I never knew I could.
Yeah. I know for me personally, I can think of like 4 leaders I worked under that really made me second guess my own abilities. I feel like
Mhm.
over time. And that's
Oh
like
yeah.
the worst form of leadership I've
Oh yeah.
experienced. And I've seen it with so many other people where people are good at what they do, but they're under these toxic leaders that
Yes.
just belittle them and make them feel like
Yep.
they're not capable. And
Oh
then
my
you go
God,
to
Lauren.
find another job and like you lose all of your confidence.
That's right. Lauren, that was exactly who fired me. So this was a woman who had zero EQ. I mean, none. And she asked me the question, she goes, "Why do you care if people like you?" I'm like, I'm leading an organization. What do you mean? I have to create a safe space for these people. There's a reason 25 people come to my 5-person team calls. Like, I'm creating a safe space. We're building psychological safety so they can do their best work. She's like, "Well, your soft skills are very strong, but I want you in the weeds on every deal." And I'm
Oh
like,
my gosh.
"What? Why do I have a team then? If I have to know all the details, what are they here for? My job is to remove obstacles for them and let them do the jobs they were hired for." She did not want that. I was
Uh,
never going to micromanage, so we were never going to be successful together. But that woman took away all of my instincts, all of the things that I knew about myself. I couldn't rely on my ability to read people, my sense of humor, my intelligence, my wit, all of that was like, no way. I have to think about every word coming out of my mouth because I'm being scrutinized so hard. And that is the worst way to lead.
yeah, it's terrible. It's
Yeah.
terrible. And so many experiences like that.
Yeah.
I
And
think this is go,
go
go.
ahead. No, I was just going
This
to say those moments are what make you sick. I mean, I was so anxious at this time. I was lashing out at my family. I would wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, second guessing myself, thinking I didn't send an email or thinking I didn't respond to something or I didn't finish a report. And I was living such an insecure style, which is so not who I am.
yeah.
And all of these moments, they're traumas, they're micro traumas that were happening over and over again. And it took me a while to recover my sense of self and my ability to stand with my hands on my hips and be like, no, I'm a freaking ass. And you can't take that away from me. But yeah, that those
Yeah.
leaders can really take the wind out of your sails. It's awful.
100%. I'm remembering a time where I was having the exact same experience with a boss who was female as well,
Mhm.
where I literally started messing up because I was under
Yeah.
so much pressure.
Mhm.
And she was looking for every little thing I was going to do wrong or how I was going to slip up that
Yeah.
was actually causing me to slip up because I was just
Yeah.
worried about every little thing. So
Mhm.
Talk to us
So that's
about,
what I'm trying to eradicate.
yeah, talk to us a little bit more about that, because I feel like it's kind of a hot topic now,
Yeah.
cultures within companies trying to create this new way of leading.
Yeah.
Why is this so important?
Oh my gosh. Well, so I think what we first have to get off the table is let's not confuse pool tables and free beer on Friday and swag with culture. Those are perks. Those are fun, but here's the reality. If you make t-shirts and you make hats and backpacks for your people and you are a rotten company with, no moral compass, that's going straight in the goodwill bin. So, it's wasted marketing dollars. So the challenge that we have today is culture and good leadership starts at the top. We model the behavior we want to see. So if you are a lunatic that's running around with your hair on fire and belittling people and embarrassing people, don't be surprised when your people are acting the same way. If you are compassionate and you are giving people the space to do the jobs they were hired for. And, some of the questions from the best leaders I ever had was, Lynn's, okay, I just promoted you. How do you want to run your business? And I was like, you want to know from me? You want to know? I was like, holy shit. Okay, wait, I need to get my act together. I'll come back to you. But it was this moment of autonomy and this moment of, wow, this is what good leadership feels like. And I had a lot of these leaders that taught me incredible things. And then I had the opposite. And the opposite are the ones, the horror stories. I've got so many. In fact, there are so many in my book. But the book is called Top Down Culture for that reason. It starts at the top, but let's not mistake, culture belongs to everybody. So if you are sitting at the water cooler kvetching about some process, some person, something that's bad, you're part of the problem. And we all have gripes. We all have complaints. There is no perfect workplace, but you have an opportunity to lead, whether you have reports or not. You have an opportunity to lift others up, whether you have direct reports or not. And recognition is free. Being kind is free. And I always knew as a rep, I was in sales my whole career. So when I was the quarterback of big accounts, I had to invite people to want to work on my accounts. They had choices. They could go work on other accounts, but I wanted them on mine. So for me, I had to make it the most fun, the most lucrative, the most opportunities for them. And so I had 55 people like as part of this team. They didn't report to me, but they all worked on this account. Well, they all thought they reported to me because I created this space for them. And I was like, hey, I'll give you entree to whoever you want. Just tell me what you're trying to do, and I'll make sure that it jives with the rest of the mission that we've got here. But we've got so much opportunity. I can't take it all myself. I need your help. And there was a lot of other people that didn't manage that way. They're like, everything comes through me. Well, how much can you spread out when you're the stopgap for all those people? You can't. So you have an opportunity to improve the culture you're in, no matter where you are. But I mean, if you're under an ogre, it's going to be hard. So finding a way out, finding a way to another manager, finding a way to get advocacy from someone else in the organization is really important, because you need those people in your corner to A, help keep you sane, B, give you hope, and C, give you a way out.
Yeah. I mean, it makes me think when I've been under some of those leaders where I was like, I'm never going to get a reference from this person, how I just started looking for allies outside of like my direct report.
Yep.
Like who would be my people that actually knew the value I was bringing, because it is not always that person that's right above you.
No, and I call that building a culture of advocacy. So this was something that we did really well at IBM. And the way it worked was if you were an executive, you had, once or twice a month, an opportunity to have an executive interview with someone outside your reporting chain. And those moments were you as the employee got to speak to someone that you were inspired by or looked up to and didn't know very well. And you got to tell them your story. And then the executive got to know you in a different way. And when it came time for them to hire or be on a leadership call where someone says, hey, I need to fill this job. Does anybody know of anybody? Actually, I just talked to Beverly and she is perfect for that role. All of a sudden you understand the talent on your bench in a much broader way. It helps you promote the people from within, but it also gives the people that you get to speak to, all this new insight of, wow, there's some good leaders out there that can really be my advocate, be my friend. It's like a more informal mentorship, but it's a great practice for a company.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm thinking too, coming out of career loss, career change, anyone who's exploring a potential shift, corporate versus entrepreneurship, because I think this is
Yeah.
also an interesting space, right?
Oh,
Where I
yeah.
hear a lot of women talking about, I can't find a company that I align with
Yeah.
or leadership that I align with. So I'm just going to go into business for myself, create what I want.
Yeah.
But it's not for everyone at the same time. I always say, like, entrepreneurship's not this bulletproof road to go down. It's hard.
It is so hard. And I say this all the time. Entrepreneurship is not always the answer. In fact, most of the time it's not. I was making crap tons of money. And when I decided to go out on my own, I had saved a lot. So I was like, okay, I'm going to invest in myself. And guys, entrepreneurship is expensive. I don't care what anyone tells you. You are not going to, unless you're really, really lucky, you are not going to make the money you are making from your corporate job in year one. You might not even make it in year two. And it takes time. There's so much work and so many costs that go into being an entrepreneur. So, it is not all daisies and sunshine. It is lonely, it is hard, and you have to really cultivate a network of people and accountability partners that help keep you on track. Listen, I started so many first of a kind businesses for IBM. I'm like, I got chops. I can do this. Oh my God, there were so many things I didn't know. So many things I didn't know. And there's still things I don't know. I'm still learning. And, I'm always kind of like, oh, I need to do that. Taxes.
Yeah.
There's a lot to think about. So I would say hire a coach. Make sure that you vet that coach. Make sure that the coach that you are looking for is appropriate for what you do. There are, like, my coach, for example, she works specifically with women that have come out of corporate and they are becoming entrepreneurs. So that is her perfect scenario, her perfect client. So she's my people. She can advise me on the stuff I don't know. You don't want somebody who is a life coach to coach you on business. So just be thoughtful about that. But yeah, I do think you can find joy in corporate roles. I think there's so much security. Well, there's more security. I don't want to say so much because there's no security anymore, but
Yeah.
there is security in getting a paycheck and having your benefits. I mean, paying for your own benefits is expensive. So there are so many pluses to working for someone else. So do not take my story as, oh, she did it, I'm gonna go do it. It's hard.
Yeah. And I'll say it's hard. Same here. I was like, and there's days where you probably second guess. You're like, do I really want this? Easy to go back to the lure of corporate and the security, right? At least seeming sense of security. But I always tell people, it doesn't have to be one or the other either right out the gate. Cause I feel like that also, it's like I have to choose.
Nope. This is the dawn of the multi-passionate. So a multi-passionate, as you said in my bio, is many things. You no longer have a single stream of income. And I think my sister-in-law was kind of the master of this before it was really a thing. Like, she was like, I'm going to stay at my friend's house so I can rent out my house for a week. I'm like, what are you doing? And she had like 6 sources of income at all times. And I was like, it's so cool. I love how she does this. I don't know how to do that, but I've gotten much better at it. And I do a LinkedIn workshop, and I do my long-term coaching, and I do, individual coaching, and I have my Sell Me Your Story workshop, and I have my podcast. And, there's so many different things that you do. I think people, especially women, you think you need to be limited, and you really don't. You're only limited by your own creativity. So if there's, I just had a friend who just did a post on Instagram, and she's like, I never anticipated this, but apparently I'm I'm in the bread making business now. She got really good at sourdough and like with no sugar and all organic ingredients. And so she had a starter and she started making it for neighbors and giving it to neighbors, and then people at school wanted it, and now it's a full-blown business. And
Wow.
it's wild how these things happen. She has another business, but like this is just something that brings her immense joy.
Yeah.
So,
Well, see, it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
no, no. I just tried to convince my old nanny to make energy balls, and I told her I'd buy them all the time, but she's
Right?
not sold.
Never know where it could start. Well, and I'd love to briefly revisit this topic of culture in corporations, especially for those that are seeking that next something. Because I feel like we're gonna have the
Yeah.
women that are like in that in between, and they're like,
Yes.
where do I find these companies that are gonna
Ugh,
feel aligned? Like,
yeah.
where are they? Because still feels like so many companies are hiring for skill sets,
Yeah.
not so much soft skills, which I'm a huge soft skill person. I'm like,
Okay, so if we're listening to this, though, we are retiring that phrase, soft skills. We call them
mhm,
power skills here,
power
especially
skills.
women. These are power skills. Soft skills undermines how important they are. These are
Yeah.
so, so important. And this is what modern leaders possess. So power skills.
Mm.
So the way to know is the first place to know is if you're interviewing. Number one question you want to ask, if you've had a good first interview and they like you and they want to have another one, ask the question, can I speak to a few folks on your team? Now, if they say no, run. Huge red flag. This is not the place for you. Ideally, they're going to be like, oh, sure, definitely. I've got 3 people you can talk to or 2 people you can talk to. But those conversations that you have, you should be asking things like, what happens when we're not making our number? What's the style of our leader? Like how do they respond to stress? How do they motivate you? Do they give you space to do the job you were hired for? Do you feel autonomy? Do you feel inspired? Those are the questions that's the culture stuff. That's the feeling. Are there business
Mhm.
resource groups? Are there, ways for us to connect with other humans? Talk about your culture. That's always very insightful. But those questions will give you so much intelligence of the vibe of the company. And if they say, oh, well, we get free beer on Fridays and we, like, again, those
Sounds
are
fun.
perks, not culture.
Yep.
So yeah, just be thoughtful with those questions and they will really, really help you make some decisions.
And honestly, some of those perks sometimes that sound like perks and sound like fun end up being a shit show.
Well, and let's be honest, unless you're going into an office all the time, who cares if there's free beer on Fridays? You're not there to drink it. So, like, that's cute,
I
but
was like,
not.
no, give me flex Fridays where I can take half a day off or
Exactly.
not work on Fridays, or talk
Yeah,
talk to me about a 4-day work week.
that's another great question. Talk to me about flexibility.
Yeah.
Are you the kind of boss that needs to see me on Slack for 8 hours a day?
Hmm.
Or are you okay if I work late some days or if I work early some days? Because I'm the sandwich generation. I take care of my parents, or I take care of my kids, or
Yep.
whatever that is. If flexibility is really important to you, what's your view on flexibility? How do you handle people when they've got doctor's appointments or sick children?
Hmm. And
Those
that's
things
such
are
an
important to me.
important thing for women
Yeah.
today, like
Yeah,
having that
it really is.
flexibility. Like I've often heard they'll take less money to have
Yeah,
more flexibility.
no question. That's probably one of the most important things for us.
Yeah. I mean, this day and age, it's super important. Um, okay, so many good things and so many different directions I could go in this conversation. But I'd be curious as we're kind of getting close to wrapping things up. Any major advice you would give people that are navigating these waters right now of career transition, whether it's they're looking for their next corporate gig or they're contemplating entrepreneurship?
So, first thing I'm going to tell you is LinkedIn is your friend. And how you leverage and show up on LinkedIn can be the difference, all the difference in the world. And what I mean by that is your profile is your landing page. You need to think about this is, if you don't have a website, this is your website. This is the thing when people Google you, that's the first thing they see. So, A, have an updated picture. Do not use one that looks nothing like you because it will be a shock to the eyes. This happened before. I had a friend who had hair in his picture, and then when I met him, he was bald, and I'm like, I didn't recognize him. I'm like, where's your hair? So yeah, have an updated picture. Also, take advantage of your banner. And your banner is the biggest piece of real estate you've got. Make sure it's clear. Make sure that when people are looking at it, you are projecting who you want them to see. And your headline is the most important piece of it all, because that's the piece that shows up when you're commenting on other people's stuff. So you can be many things. You are not just your title. And I always say, add a little personality, add something personal. I think mine says mom of twins and I love wiener dogs. I can't tell you the amount of people that comment on that. They are really pumped that I love wiener dogs, and they're like, do you have one? I'm like, I have two. And then, we talk about that, but it's just another way to relate to people. The other thing is, look at the comments. How you grow is through the comments. It's not through content creation. If you look up a hashtag of something that's important to you, maybe it's sustainability, maybe it's recycling, maybe it's leadership, whatever it is, look up the hashtag, see who's talking the most about those topics, and start commenting. It doesn't matter if you don't know them. What's going to happen is their network is going to see you're saying something pretty intelligent, and they're going to want to connect with you because of it. And if you're listening to this, you are never just going to do a thumbs up and great post, because that offers nothing to anyone. So you got to think about like why something resonated with you. Or if you really love somebody's post, share it. Give the author credit and say, I love what Lauren posted here. I had to share it. Tag her in it. It makes her whole network see it, and your whole network see other things. I'm telling you, I have posted things from other people. I just had one video I shared 6 months ago. That thing was shared like 180 times. I didn't even create the video, but I shared it and I wrote why I thought it was so great. Those are the moments that help you grow. And if you have a company you want to work for, first of all, here's a hot tip. You can go to that company's page and create a job alert. And when you do that, it notifies their recruiters that you're interested. So that's cool. But the second thing is, look at the managers, look at the leaders, look at any potential hiring manager and the executives. Look at what they're posting. Follow them and go comment. And the more you start to show up in their circles, they'll be like, who is this person? I want to have a conversation with them. They keep showing up and supporting my comments that are supporting my posts. This is good. So all of those are really great ways to navigate and be visible. It will set you apart, because there's like a billion users on LinkedIn, and I think like 1% are active. So there's plenty of room for you to grow and show up.
Same rules apply if you're considering entrepreneurship.
So yeah, because it's ultimately your clients. I mean, for me, LinkedIn is where I find my podcast guests, my clients, my advisors, my accountability partners, my collaborations. They're all here. So if you are thinking about entrepreneurship, surround yourself with people who are already doing it and ask them for, what are the biggest lessons you learned? People love to talk about themselves. They love to talk about their experience. Let them talk about it, learn, write notes. But yeah, it's fantastic place for you. If you're an entrepreneur, you better be on LinkedIn. That's the most important place for you to be.
Yep. Could not agree more. Well, this has been so awesome, Lyndsay. I hope you'll come back and share more down the road.
Anytime.
For now, I would love to know what are you up to? How can people work with you and find you?
Yeah. So I would do long-term coaching. So I coach C-suites for like 12 months or longer. This is a combination of one-on-one interviews, group interviews, one-on-one coaching, group coaching. I interview people in the trenches. We obviously do a baseline to start of like, what are your NPS scores like? What are your attrition numbers like by manager, by company, et cetera. So we have a way to measure our success down the road. But what this does is it gets all of your leaders singing from the same song sheet. It creates incredible transparency, consistency, authenticity, vulnerability, communication, innovation, all of the good things. But we're changing the fabric of the company. We are fortifying the culture, and we're transforming the leadership. So that's kind of my sweet spot. But I also do individual coaching, and I do a lot of podcasts, and I have my own podcast. Go check out my YouTube channel. And certainly you can buy the book, Top Down Culture. So those
Awesome.
are all the things I'm working on.
Love it. Well, I appreciate all the insight and wisdom you've dropped in the last little under an hour. Hopefully you'll all connect with Lyndsay. She's got some great
Please.
episodes of her podcast. And yeah, if you're a C-suite looking to transform culture, definitely should be someone you have in your arsenal. Well, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And to all listening, hope you'll be back for the next episode and look forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks, Lauren. This is so
Thank
fun. It
you.
went by so fast.